Protestants have been back and forth arguing about it. I think there is something to it.
Well, the disobedience to God is the original sin. Or
right. I think that it was that rejection of God in that state of us now being out of fellowship with him that is the original sin.
But I don't think it's rejection of God. They didn't reject God. They just disobeyed his command.
They disobeyed him, which is about as close to rejection as you can get. I mean...
well, you have the scripture going through talking about how everybody became sinful because of through Adam. And then you have other people that say that led to the way that Frank Turek describes is as a readiness to sin factor, because the idea is we're not getting judged for Adam's individual sin, we get judged for ours, but still, lack of perfection means you're not making the cut.
Right.
All right, let's make sure that we're clear here. It's not Adam's sin; that was Eve's sin.
Well,
Eve doesn't get blamed with it. In fact, the Bible even says Eve was deceived; Adam was not.
It does say that.
and
sure
essentially what that means is that Eve was deceived. She took the apple. When she gave it to Adam, Adam knew the consequences of eating that. But he had a choice to make. Either I remain faithful to God, or this woman who I love more than anything else, that my eyes have beheld, I go with her. And I think out of love, he chose her and said, I'll join. Instead of saying, you're in trouble, I'll let God, deal with you when he comes in the afternoon. He said, I'm going to join you in whatever condition you are in.
Well, see, I always thought of it like this. God told Adam, if you eat of the tree, you're going to die.
Right.
And that's what he said. Eve didn't hear that. Eve heard Adam tell her that she should die.
Right.
Okay. So in Adam, this is just Cherry's way of thinking. It doesn't make it right. Okay. If you told me that my wife was going to do something and she was going to die if she did it, and I watched her do it, and I'm like, wait a minute here, I didn't hurt her. Would I try?
I think that Adam knew that it was talking about a spiritual death.
I don't know, but see, we're speculating.
Right, and I think that really, because Adam didn't tell her the exact words that God
How do
did.
you know?
Because it said that when Eve is referring to the serpent, she said that if I eat of it, least if I even touch it, I shall die.
She did it. She did add to it. Yes, that's not what God said. But she did add to it.
Adam was the one who added to it. There, he was like, you know what? Eve is so spectacular. I finally have a companion.
Well, she was the prettiest woman on the earth.
There you go.
But the only one.
Said, you'll die if you even touch it. That was his way of making a safe boundary.
That could have very well had been, but I mean, on top of it that's one thing to directly hear from the Creator himself and knowing for sure in your own heart. But in this case, this is a different degree of separation. Did he get it right? Is he telling me the right way or not?
Never mind, you guys will get mad at me, but once again, could we have missed something in the translation all those years ago?
Well, I think that you'd really have to go into translations which are excruciatingly hard to translate.
Well, what I'm saying is like what somebody said to somebody else versus what God said to those could have gotten construed throughout the years. That's all.
We have to bank on the fact that Scripture was handed down to us in the way that it was intended to. Because as soon as you say that there's stuff there that we should have known that we don't know that would lead to salvation, that would destroy Christ's mission all at once. In other words, it would make it pointless because there's more here that we need for salvation when Christ is saying, all you need is me for salvation. I am salvation.
Right, and I mean at some level, I mean if you're trusting that if you're say for example here on Genesis, if you're attributing authorship to Moses, you're still basically depending that God is passing it down correctly for Moses to be able to write it.
Right.
Once it is, if you got that confidence that it was written down correctly the first time, then hopefully over the years, comparing copies and everything, you can essentially verify that as dependable.
Right.
Okay.
It's the original authorship that you have to trust in the case, because we have enough copies to say that, yeah, this is pretty much the way that it was originally written.
And the thing is, that little section I read out of Philippians 2, scholars generally think that little section goes back to within like 5 to 10 years of the crucifixion. Mm-hmm. That essentially it's an early pre-biblical, in other words, before the scriptures were even put down, creed that was passed from church to church. And this was something that Paul would normally pass on to his churches. It was lucky enough to be written down in the letter to the Philippians. But yeah, I mean, right there, it shows that out of the gate that Christ was both as God and that he was human. And that was central to Christian belief right out of the gate.
Right. Now, as far as the original sin concept, if it's the draw or the being susceptible to sin is weakened in our human nature, the reason that some people want to be able to hold on to that is because it says that we have an advocate who has been tempted in every way that we had been. And if he didn't have that extra desire or draw to overcome, would he have been tempted in the same way that we have been?
Right.
Well, that's my other question that's been bugging me with what you just said.
Okay. Did I make the statement correctly for the question, or do you have clarification to it?
No, I understand the Wait.
You understand the part that
I think so. Maybe not. I'll just wait.
Well, what was the question?
So the question is how is Jesus tempted in all ways that we were without actually sinning?
Or no, with that. Well, if original sin is described in the same condition that Frank Turek describes it, as in a readiness to sin factor. In other words, you're basically on the slippery slope and haven't started yet. If Christ didn't have that to start out with, how would he have been tempted in the same way that we would be?
Right, yeah. I think, and this is speculation, but I mean, you all can hear me out on this. I think a big part of original sin is, in fact, the separation between us and God. Before, we had full access to God before the fall. So any questions, any, hey, good idea, bad idea, anything, we could have gone to him and received an honest physical answer, verbal answer. The fall brought upon our separation now of that state. And if you read through Genesis on into it, that state becomes more and more until God creates the tabernacle, in which case now you have the Holy of Holies. Only one guy's allowed to go in there, only once a year, and he better have checked all the boxes before he goes in.
Which is why he had a rope tied around him just in case he didn't, so you can pull his butt back out.
But at the end of Jesus' crucifix, when he says, "It is finished," the veil in the temple, which was a very thick, like 5-inch woven wool curtain, tore from top to bottom. It ripped in half. And anybody who was in the temple could see now into the Holy of Holies.
So let me see if I understand what you're saying here, Patrick. It's not that the original sin concept necessarily would be the increased desire but the original sin would be the after effects that you're now having to experience because you fell short that first time.
Yep, I think because Adam fell short that first time, and we are all Adam's offspring. Right? We have that. We all want what is good. All of us do. The problem is that none of us really know how good God is, so we start naming other things, just like Adam did with Eve. That's the thing I want. That's my desire. That's my and now we no longer have a father that we can go, is this a good idea? All right, we're on our own.
Yeah, I have never heard. I have never heard of original sin described like that.
Well, there's now a divide between us, and every time we sin, we only add to that divide.
But then
and most people, I think that by the time they realize they're past the age of accountability, they look back and they go, "Oh wow, I've already put millions of miles between me and God."
Going back to what you said about temptation, Hebrews 4, verse 15, which I looked up as I was doing a study here. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted, and we are yet without sin. So right there in Hebrews, it does say, hey, our high priest, which is Christ, was tempted, but still was without sin. He didn't go just lost the words. He didn't follow up on those wants and desires that he had.
Right.
He was able to, and he's setting that example for us, which Paul said that's who we strive to be. Every day we crucify ourselves, right? Get rid of the old self, and now we're a new day, a new you, right. And we strive to walk in the steps of Christ as best as we can.
Coffee lovers everywhere now have the opportunity to do their part to save the planet with Al Gore's lab-grown coffee substitute. We, here at Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change, believe this is a terrible idea. While man-bun-wearing, soy latte-loving poodle walkers everywhere are in love with the eco-friendly lab-grown sadness water, Coffee Drinkers for Climate Change want to see the sea levels rise. And for New York City to join the lost city of Atlantis, 12,000 leagues beneath the sea.
American Pride Roasters, historically great coffee. Every pot brewed is an eco-disaster 100 times greater than the Fukushima extinction level event. So order yours today and do your part to hasten the end of the planet. You don't want to live forever, do you? AmericanPrideRoasters.com. That's AmericanPrideRoasters.com.
How dare you?
We dare. We dare.
We remind all of our listeners that the views and opinions of the show hosts and guests appearing on Mojo 50 Radio are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Cuddle Me Buff LLC, its owners and partners, or this network. Thank you for listening to Mojo 50 Radio.
Now, I did some other things about what's a godly man. I think there is 9 things that I picked up going through real quick. One of them was a godly man knows he will stumble as he strives towards holiness. The verse that they picked up there was James 3:2. For we all stumble in many things. If anyone who does not stumble in word, he is a perfect man, able also to bridle the whole body. So God knows we're going to stumble. And even though we stumble, we continue to strive towards perfectness, I guess, or holiness.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if because we were speaking about sin and did Christ sin? Of course not. He set that example of you can be tempted. Don't forget, he spent 40 days in the wilderness, and the devil tempted him with power, with food. Power, food. What's the other one? Power,
sex,
Lord over food. There was one more.
There was women too. He threw it all in there.
It was
authority, right? Power.
Food. All right. Food. Right. It was authority.
Right.
All right.
It was one more.
And it